or we are a septenary. Everything in our bodies is septenary. The 7 chambers of the brain, 7 chambers of the heart, the 7 orifices in the body, the 7 vital organs, etc., etc. Everything about our nature is septenary. It's a serpent. That's the serpent. And the serpent is sitting here. Ophiuchus is in the sign of Scorpio. Let's have a look at Scorpio. Scorpio with the red star in it. Okay. There is Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. So Ophiuchus, what he does, he's carrying the serpent, and the serpent's head is right next to the scales of Libra. You see, we saw that before, right? And the serpent is saying to the woman, and Bootes, her husband, is Adam. This is Eve, Virgo. It's saying to her, eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is the good, this is the evil. And the scales are denoting that. Because once the sun goes through these signs, it comes to a point where it has to flip over its polarity. It's given an electric summer, but now it has to change its nature. And it must flip that polarity and produce a winter. So it tastes from the tree of good and evil. Having tasted good, now it must have evil. And that's the serpent that is at the tree deceiving the woman, because she eats from it first. Bootes follows. So let's have a look at the 4 horsemen, shall we, of the apocalypse. The white horse symbolises the vernal equinox. The red horse symbolises the autumnal equinox. The black horse, the winter solstice. That's where black Saturn is. And the pale horse, or green, symbolises the summer solstice. You see, green and lush is that horseman of the apocalypse, that cardinal point. And as those, you see, the sun is always depicted being transported around with 4 horses. Okay, 4 seasons, 4 horses, 4 cardinal points. And as they go around, they have different natures and different qualities. Of course, these are very similar. The equinoxes, right? Spring and autumn are very similar, but summer and winter, big difference. Okay. White is the colour of the good spirit, and in its mythical aspects correlates astronomically to the vernal equinox. Red, the opposite or opponent counterpart of white in much of the symbolism, and represents the autumnal equinox. Matter is counterbalanced by spirit, just as the autumnal equinox is counterbalanced by the vernal equinox. So the red horse is the autumnal equinox, the controller of the entrance into the infernal regions of the lower hemisphere. Black signifies the darkness of the pit of the lower world, where the sun is shrouded by dark blackness. Green represents the verdant quality of the summer season, brought in by the summer solstice. The Bible uses the term pale horse, but all of the biblical dictionaries define the term pale as synonymous to the colour green. Now, the riders on the horses, they are different. The riders on the horses, one has a scale, that's Libra. And these are the riders of the horses, okay? The riders of the horses are distinct and separate from the horses in terms of their identity. One reason that other scholars over the years and centuries have failed to interpret this symbolism correctly is that they have blended the individual riders and their assigned horses into single entities, which is an error. The riders of the 4 horses are the zodiacal signs that pass over the stations of the horses, cardinal points. During the day, year, or astrological era that may be targeted by the symbolism. The descriptions of the riders give us sufficient information for their identities. He that sat on the white horse had a bow and a crown, which indicates the sector of Sagittarius. Bow and a crown. With the bow. The bow is Caus Australis. That's the bow in the sector of Sagittarius. And the crown is Corona Australis. Remember we spoke about Corona Borealis in Libra, the crown of thorns? Well, this is Corona Australis of that sector. He that sat on the red horse is described as a killer and a disruptor of peace, which indicates the killer scorpion that carries the sting of death, whose venom ushers in the sorrow and misery of the winter season, as the sun dips below the equinoxes, into the sector of Scorpio. He that sat on the black horse carried balances in his hand, which of course is the scales of Libra. He that sat on the pale green horse was called Death, and the governor of hell, which is of course Saturn in Capricorn, the well-known goat devil of the zodiac. And of course this corresponds with the dragon that drew a third part of the stars of heaven. Have you ever heard of that in Revelation? And I saw the dragon, and he hurled a third of God's stars from heaven. Right? Well, the constellation of Draco is in Sagittarius, but it goes from Virgo all the way down to Scorpio. That's exactly a third, 120 degrees of arc is occupied by Draco on the northern throne. It's a big constellation in the north. We can't see it, but it's up there where the Big Dipper is and all that. And Draco controls the North Pole. He gets about 3 stars to sit on the North Pole during the 24,000-year precessional cycle. So he's basically the boss, right? And when Draco goes down, in other words, from Virgo downwards, this is the sign of betrayal, Virgo, the dragon hurls a third of God's angels down to the earth. We are told by these verses of the Bible that the dragon's tail drew a third of the stars of heaven. This symbolism points directly to the zodiacal signs Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius and Capricorn, which are situated right in the fold of the dragon's tail. I have explained conclusively in Book 4, he's got his 5 books here, that the dragon of the apocalyptic heavens of the Bible symbolises the constellation Draconis with the stellar symbolism. The tail of the biblical dragon of the heavens in the Bible is synonymous to the tail of the cosmic dragon, which is in fact the constellation Draconis. The constellation of Draconis stretches over nearly half of the sky's celestial longitude, and at the time of the biblical editing, the tail of Draconis traversed the span of the zodiac stretching from the autumnal equinox through the winter solstice, a span of 4 zodiacal constellations, thus denoting the fall of the sun into the lower regions of the cosmos as demarcated by the celestial equator.